Well, excuse my teacher voice. Welcome, everyone. I'm Sarah Himmelheber. I'm moderating this session on international care farming. And we're so lucky to have Maarten Fischer as our first presenter here, and Brian Smyth also with us. So I will say the three of us are going to present some slides, and then we'll have a little space at the end for some questions and discussion, hopefully around what we can learn from the European care farming movement, and how we can apply those lessons to the US. So I will turn things over to our first presenter.
So you want me to just start sharing?
Yes, and you can share your slides and introduce yourself, and I think we can all see and hear you well.
All right. Can you see my slides?
Yes, it looks great.
Perfect. Yeah, I can only see you, so I'm just assuming there's people in the audience, but that's okay. Um, so before we start, I hope all Americans are going to watch speed skating today because it's a rare occasion that America beats the Netherlands in speed skating. And so, hello everybody. Um, Thank you for turning me around. So I'll be speaking a little bit about care farming in the Netherlands. I've actually started my interest in care farming in Ireland. So I'm happy Brian follows after me. That was in 1998. And then since then, I've been involved in several programs, mostly in the Netherlands, but also in other countries to start or facilitate care farming. I'll kind of go fairly quickly, so there's a little room for questions at the end. Let me just see that I can click there. So the Netherlands is a fairly small country, but we have about 18 million people in the country and 1,315 farms that identify themselves as care farms. Um, Care farms in the Netherlands have been around for about 40, 50 years, but the past 25 years they've really taken off and are fully integrated in the healthcare system. The sector represents about 450 million in value of care annually, which you can see translate to quite a bit of income to the farmers as well. The care, consists of care to about 36,000 clients per year, many of which stay the whole year. So it's a lot of work, which also shows that, we have a lot of employees in the sector. The, the populations that are served on care farms are very widely. Youth, adults, elderly, mental health, developmental health, voc rehab, traumatic brain injuries, addiction issues, law enforcement, reintegration, all kinds of things. Most care farms supply day programs, and some have some forms of short stay or 24-hour care and long-term care. Um, Care farms usually will contract either themselves or in cooperatives with insurance companies and governments of all layers. Um, and yeah, the sector has done very well at also organizing each other collectively on a regional and national scale. And I'll talk about that a little more in a minute. By the way, if there are questions in the meantime, I can't see you, but it's fine if you want to ask a question. I just have one picture of a care farm. There's many wonderful pictures. This is just one. Um, it's actually the farm where Jan Hassing, who's a fairly famous researcher in this field, also started and is on the board. Um, is all going well? Yeah, good.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Um, and yeah, this is kind of a nice picture of a farm because you see it's a place where people come and go, all kinds of people. It's also a place where people with disabilities work. There's young people here. There's also adults with developmental disabilities, and there's a group of seniors with Alzheimer's that can either integrate with the group during days or find their own spot on the back of the building. There's also a CSA, so community supported agriculture farm behind this building, where many of the local people can grow and eat their vegetables collectively. There's a small restaurant where you can see people sitting on the terrace. And so these places are not just like a secluded place where there's care, but they're very much an inclusive place where we call it society in miniature can take place and people can truly feel like they're part of society as a whole. And most care farms, you can't actually see who's a participant or a worker or a visitor because everyone commingles well, while at the same time, we do have to supply the support for the people that are there. And that is also done, in an inclusive way. So not people in white coats or, in with labels on their jackets, but just one of the people that work there, and everyone can contribute in their own capacity. I was, for the past 5.5 years, I was the director of the National Federation of Care Farms. We are a national representative of 15 regional member organizations. We represent 1,000 farms, so not all of the ones in the Netherlands, but most. And we run a fairly small national office. Most of the capacity we have is on the care farms and in the regions. But as a national office, we have to we set the quality standard. We do all of the advocacy with the national government. We have a lot of work communicating towards the public and towards farmers to keep them informed on all the rules and regulations that apply or any developments that have to take place. We also stimulate all kinds of new products, services, concepts in the that could help clients have their experience on the farm and help farmers deliver it. And then we provide, we have a national academy and a handbook and many other resources for either beginning or orienting farmers, as well as the very experienced farmers with ongoing education. And so that gives you a little bit of a sense of what we do as a federation. Obviously, we are constantly in contact with all relevant departments of the national government and also take part in on the policy level, not just making sure we understand the policies, but we also influence policies and try to stay relevant. And the government tends to be very, very kind to us because a lot of where the traditional care sector wants to move, holistic care, person-centered care, inclusive care, all of that stuff is natural within the care farm setting. So policymakers usually like the sector, especially since the quality assurance is well arranged. So here are some things that I already mentioned. One that I forgot was our National Complaint Center. This is something that we also have to do by law, and we organize everything on the scale where it's most efficient, but still, close enough to be considered personal. So I think, oh yeah, and then I thought since I was here, I also lived in Montana for 5 years, and I started some care farms there. We had 12 care farms that I was able to get started. And together with the home care company in Montana, we became a qualified provider for the Agency on Aging for SDMI waiver, which is a program in Montana for mental health. The Development to Disabled waiver program, youth care programs. We worked for nursing homes and provided programs for voc rehab. It was a great program. Unfortunately, after I left, COVID also hit, and the program is still there, but much smaller than it was before. But we were able to get it going fairly quickly, and I was really surprised that it was possible to become a qualified provider for all these programs and bill the state, mostly the state and some local government for our services and transportation as well. And so if people have a question about that, I'll gladly answer that. And that was my introduction.
Great, thank you so much. We can have questions at the end as well. Okay. So I'm going to introduce our next presenter.
If there's a way for me to hear him, that would be great.
I think there should be. Yes, all right. Brian Smyth, uh, coming all the way from Ireland, and I'll let you introduce yourself. Thank you.
Hey, Brian.
Good morning, Maarten. Or good afternoon, Maarten. Because it's 6 hours further on.
Correct.
Isn't it? Yeah. So, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here and to have met so many people and to hear so much about what's happening here. I'll take you through very quickly what's happening or what's happened in Ireland and happening in Ireland. Okay. Moving. Oh, this one here is up. Okay. Let me get rid of this. So I am project manager or lead for a national network which is funded annually by the Irish government through the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine. And that's funded since 2015 as a formal network of farmers and other stakeholders. And through that, we have responsibility to recruit, train and induct new farmers to get them to the point where they can deliver support on their farm. We develop and implement a governance and quality framework for placements, focusing on all elements of governance, but also on safety and safeguarding. And I suppose we emerged the network with the reorganization of care farming, or social farming as we call it, that happened from 2007 onwards. Because like Maarten said, there was lots of activity, very sporadic, very different in different ways, that had came and gone in some cases. And there was a history of institutional issues, we'll say, and in some cases abuse of people who were on these farms, taken advantage of for different reasons. So we wanted to move away from that when we talk about care farming or social farming, as we call it, because it's wider than just care. And so we help establish and pay for the first round of placements on farm. Farming is different in Ireland than it is here, and of course it's different again in the Netherlands and in other places. So what we have is specific and I suppose works in Ireland. We engage a wide range of stakeholders and commissioners who commission the support for the individual. So it could be school, could be an older person service, it could be a disability service, probation, youth service, justice, whoever. And they an integration service, so they can commission placements on a farm close to them. So our idea was very similar to your own. A farm in every county are accessible to everybody in Ireland within 50 kilometres, within half an hour. And we've almost achieved that in the 10 years. So I suppose that was what we set out with the Department of Agriculture to do. Their interest is in seeing the income and income diversification on what are marginal, I suppose, and marginal farms, economically marginal farms, and the farms are wide and varied. So we broker and commission those placements once the first placements are funded and up and running. And we do a lot of awareness raising in the public domain, particularly in the early years. It's less necessary now because a lot of people now know what social farming is. Well, not a lot, enough people who need to know. So we also research and do a lot of policy work. We have a conference coming up in April, and yesterday we just managed to get our Minister for Agriculture to come and open that conference. So we meet the minister. He was appointed last year after an election. So we've met all of the ministers since 2007, I think, on farms, and we have a good relationship. I'd say good, open, but it's always hard work. So in the policy domain, we're working with agriculture, health and social care, integration, children and youth, all these departments, the civil servants, the ministers, and trying to bring policy or to deliver policy and to ensure that they understand that social farming is delivering on their policies. So they have a policy for mental health. It's called Sharing the Vision, New Directions policy, and they have a defined reason why they do everything and a defined budget under that that buys in this to deliver on the policy. Not always, and policy can be very and politicians, they can speak out of both sides of their mouth, so to speak. Anyway, so that is hard work, but it's ongoing and it must be done. And we collaborate internationally. We've met Maarten. Maarten has been to Ireland a few times. We've been, and also with the research institutions in the Netherlands, in fact, Wageningen University. And also we collaborate very closely with University College Dublin and Queen's University, and have done since 2007. So we get involved in a variety of research projects led by researchers and Ph.D. and master students. Because it is important to be gathering evidence and to have that semi-independent, that it's speaking to and of what happens. We have a staff of 12. We have formed 6 regional hubs. Ireland is very small. We have just over 5 million in total in the country, people, and but it's geographically, I suppose, and population levels are low. So that produced its own challenges. Now, I'm not sure if this will move me. Okay. So we support people with disabilities, those in recovery for mental ill health, justice system, people who have been homeless or are, older people and those with dementia, young people and children down to the age of 14. Insurance companies won't let us deal with children under 14. Asylum seekers, migrants, refugees, and the long-term unemployed. So we're an NGO focused on inclusion and community rural development, and we have this project funded, as I said, we have, and that's the staffing we have in it. I suppose our values and background come from the person who's going to be supported on farms. So it's from a social inclusion, equality, and social justice perspective. So everything we do and what we do with the farmers is guided by that. It's not for the farmers we do this for the people who can benefit. And so you have to keep those values in mind. So the principles and values come out of that, and we inform everybody of that, farmers, all the other stakeholders, policy, and that's what we're delivering. So, and obviously, the international policy, European policies, the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities, the Sustainable Development Goals, and all those we take into account. We must. And we find that the farmers who come on board are very much into those things, and they're into community building, they're into environmental sustainability, holistic health and wellness. So everything aligns because we've taken those values to lead everything we do. Our logo there, you can see, says new opportunities, connecting people and enhancing lives. So new opportunities for farmers, for services, for politicians, for those people who come to us on the farm, connecting people. So you're connecting people essentially with nature on the farm, with animals, plants, with the people and place that is a farm. They're unique. And there's a sense of place, there's a sense of heritage in that place, what went before and what's to come. So we're connecting people and connecting them with other people, and also with community, whatever goes on around that farm. So you have the postman, the veterinary, whoever comes and goes, the interests that those people have, whether it's sport, music, and those things all come into it. So we're connecting people, and in the process then enhancing everybody's lives in that. So that we defined that in about 2009, and it holds true to everything we do. Okay. So that's the kind of thing that happens. So I suppose what we look at when we're actually delivering the support, it's a planned, person-centered, outcome-focused support. So There's a plan around every individual who comes. That's defined in writing. Person is involved in saying what it is, if it's to be physically active, if it's to be socializing, if it's to develop routines that, help progress towards work, if it's skills development. And it can be very straightforward and simple, and we try to keep it simple for the placement. And the farms are just ordinary working farms. There's nothing set up. There's nothing brought in or built specifically. They're just what they are. They're farms. And there's no point in getting away from that, because I know you've talked, Maarten talked about the white coats. Somebody mentioned the beige building yesterday. So those things are not what the farm is. The farm is a farm, and it says what it is on the tin. So it's a farm, and we keep it that. We won't rotate them into clinical settings. And we're using the natural assets that are there within the farm environment, within the activities, the animals, the plants, the farmer, their family, in the people and the community around to support these people. So people, place, and participation. So they're vital parts of mix. And they vary hugely. Our farms are all sorts of things and places. So this young man was there for some skills development and learning, with the view when he left school to looking for opportunities there. So again, there is some research. We have a researcher on our project. She's generally involved in mainly qualitative research, sometimes with outside agencies and organizations, universities, etc., students, but also some of our own. Because when we started in 2007, the first thing most people said is, well, what evidence have you that this works? We knew it worked. We could talk about how it worked, but we hadn't the hard evidence. And so maybe. So we said we'd have to put evidence around it, and we continue to do that. And some of the reports I know I had here, they're on our website under resources. So again, we have thousands of photographs of practice, I suppose, and what happens. So again, these are the four, I suppose, pillars. You have health and well-being, you have the social connections, there is learning. Everybody learns. Every day I go out, I learn. But every day somebody comes to those farms, it's the same thing. And people learn in a different way than they do in formal educational setting. And of course, there's physical health benefits as well. We've had people, change their physical health, and of course, well-being. And of course, the farm, it's a farm. So this is the kind of setting and the kind of things that one would see. Snapshot of our farms, we have about 160 active, about 220 registered. They're in every part now. I don't know if we're accessible within, 30, 35, 50 minutes, but we're definitely getting there, very close to it. The range from small horticulture grower on an intense space around the holding, right up to very large mountain range sheep on the ranges. And everything in between. Some are very intensive, a couple of very large intensive dairy farms, and then there's a mix of everything that goes on at those places: horticulture, equine, woodland, dairy. And it's the qualities, I suppose, and characteristics of the farmer and the people that really bring out the assets that are there. They're altruistic, they're community connected, they're spiritual, they have, and many of them will have experience of issues themselves, family with disability, their own health, mental health, or those close to them. So, or work in the systems. They would have family working as nurses or occupation therapists or whatever. And some of them would have worked themselves. Some of them they're environmentally conscious, most of them. About 25-30% of them are certified organic farmers, and another, probably the same percentage, are using organic or biodynamic principles, but not certified. The home and house are part of the activity. So we see this celebration of birthdays and Christmas, all the annual celebrations, and people learn to cook. They do all sorts of things, crafting, and it depends on the mix that's within that family or farm. And these chaps produce these stools in the workshop. And obviously there's one of them is three-legged, as you can see, I think. So there's that sense of achievement and social roles. So that's three happy men there. Okay, I'll move on. I think my time is probably gone, but you know that we don't see that farms should invest in capital, that the capital is already there. It's a social capital, and all we're doing is releasing it in whatever way. And obviously then farms develop in different ways. Some do invest in the bathrooms and toilets. That's an ongoing conversation in our case all the time, because and so as places develop that, you know, these things come into, you know, the welfare, and particularly in COVID, we remained open throughout COVID and had people on farm. But that those kind of facilities, welfare facilities, became more to the fore. So we provide all those new opportunities and experience. It's very experiential. Okay, demand is growing at this stage for nature-based support in a huge, it's like what I refer to it sometimes as that sound, you know, board, and you're producing classical music on this end and hard rock on this end and everything in between. So everybody's, you know, and that's okay. But the demand for that is growing because you have, you know, corporate burnout, you have, and people find they reconnect in nature. Like we're all, our DNA is connected to nature because for millennia we were out there and we've got so far away from it. And I think in recent years, moving with digital age moving ultra fast out of it, and the connection needs to be there. So for everybody, and not just these people that we speak sometimes of. Farmers are responding, and it produces the multifunctionality and the additional income. Our support is increasing from the department and also from the European Union. We got involved in a policy paper production 2 years ago, and hopefully in the next round, our policy is developed by the Commission in Brussels and the 27 member states in agriculture. And then it comes back to the member states for implementation. So we have to influence policy at that level. And the current round of discussions on the next policy from 2028 on is starting. So we travel there. And there's a link to the Commission document in supporting social farming as an innovation. Mm-hmm. So you have to be building that in at the top level so that it filters down in the next 5-year program, because they take so long. Everything takes so long. It can be very frustrating. But I think patience and is needed. So I suppose in our view, and the quote I suppose applies greatly, on a farm, you know, if you look at biodynamic principles and, you know, what a farm is, it's a holistic unit and every single thing matters. And the same with us people. So diversity is that mix. The diversity on the farm is so important, and to keep that diversity there, but the diversity and mix in within our communities is vital, and inclusion is the art, I suppose, of making that work. That's what we do, and that's what we do through social farming. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, well, as you all can probably tell already, we have so much to learn here in the US from our international friends who have been doing this work for so long. And that was my goal in starting my class at Warren Wilson. Hmm. And so that's what I'm going to talk about. All right. Well, I'm Sarah Himmelheber. I teach social work at Warren Wilson College, and I've had the opportunity to teach care farming as an elective course, and I'm teaching it this semester for the 4th time. And 2 of those iterations of the class, I had the opportunity to take students to the Netherlands. So I just wanted to say a little bit about Warren Wilson College. We are a small private liberal arts college in the mountains of Western North Carolina. We have 750 students about and 1,100 about acres. And that's one of our jokes, more than an acre per student, so we never have any conflict. We have a 300-acre working farm, and when was I have had my research focus has always been in that intersection between the social and natural environments. I started taking some horticultural therapy classes, and I learned the term care farming. And I thought, well, I work at a college with a farm, and I'm a social worker. How come I've never heard of this before? So I started doing my research, and I just read article after article after article coming out of the Netherlands. So I decided to reach out to some researchers there, and Dr. Hassink was very generous with his time and helped me have the notion to start a study abroad course and to try and bring students to see how care farms in the Netherlands operate. And so that's what I'm going to go over, just a little bit about my course, what happens kind of interculturally to inspire students, what our travel portion was like and what we took away from that, and then a little bit about the student experience. In the class, we try and do as many experiential exercises as possible so that students aren't just reading the research in care farming, they're trying out tasks that you might do on a farm, and they're doing it in a really purposeful way where they can kind of take those tasks apart and think about how they might use them to help address the strengths and needs of different population groups. So here I have a photo of a little winter sowing activity that we did. This is the end of it, obviously, that we unveiled in the spring. And we called these trash greenhouses. Every student had to bring in some plastic trash, and they usually find that pretty fun. And then we took those to plant out at the garden at Western Correctional Center for Women. This is a terrible picture here, but that's a picture of the college. We have that's a part of our farm, greenhouses, and right behind that tree line is the Swannanoa River. And students at Warren Wilson were a work college, so they all have jobs on campus. Many of them work in the farm or in the garden, or as a part of our agroforestry products crew, and then that's me. So these are just my course objectives. And this, again, the class is really intentionally experiential. It's meant to teach skills and kind of give fodder for student reflection on how different kinds of farm activities impact attention, mood. We also, in the class, rely a lot on guest speakers. Students always ask me, like, are you a care farmer? And I have to say, no, I'm not a care farmer. I'm just a social worker. So we bring in as many care farmers as we can. During the study away iterations of the class, we've had the opportunity to have Maarten Ellings, who's a researcher from the Netherlands, do a guest speaker series for us. That's been really informative. As far as the understanding more about the development of care farming in the Netherlands, how distinctive and attached to the culture and the structure of government in the Netherlands it is, and then also what is really universal and what are some of those takeaways and things that are applicable to our various cultures here in the U.S. We also have a lot of attention to theory. I really love for students to think about what are the theories that are really undergirding care farming. I think that helps us think creatively about how we could address different kinds of needs or partner with our farmers to really do this work in an effective way. We really tried to focus on research pieces that are coming out of the Netherlands for the study away portions of the course. And those are plenty. All right, yeah, so students, this is just one example here. I like for students to read the research coming from the Netherlands while we're doing maybe some tours that are local, while we're doing the experiential activities. So the larger picture here, that's my class working in our garden space, mulching some paths between our planting rows, and the blurry picture up in the corner is of an equine therapist. So we took a field trip to a facility in Swannanoa, Harmony Through Horses, that does equine therapy, while we're reading about how this development in the Netherlands has impacted different populations, what they have learned. So as I like to tell my students, there's something about all of those things kind of swirling in your brain together that hopefully makes us do that critical thinking piece and kind of attach to our own environment and think creatively about what we could make happen. All right, so we had, again, the opportunity to travel twice to the Netherlands. We worked at or volunteered at a farm up by the North Sea called Noorduva. I'm probably saying that wrong, so Maarten, you can correct me if you want. The students, we spent about a week volunteering there. This farm is, I think, a great example of the model in the Netherlands. It grows a wide variety of vegetables. They sell vegetables to restaurants, including a Michelin star restaurant in the area. And they also have a small dairy, chickens. They have some animals. Our first time there, it was actually this student here who got a chance to work in their dairy. That's my student Lexi, and she worked on the farm at Warren Wilson. And she's familiar with our dairy cow, and so she wanted to have that experience. So she was probably my only student who did that because she had to get up very early. But she was ready for it, and she also, I think she had been on our pig crew at Warren Wilson, and at Warren Wilson we have meat pigs. And so when she saw 4 pigs in the middle of kind of the square of buildings at the farm, she said, well, what do you use these pigs for? There's only 4. And it was a great moment for my students because the farm manager, 100% serious, said, well, mostly for snuggling. And the next day, I have 3 of my students full body snuggling all the pigs. So I thought that was a great reminder that of that human-animal connection and just the various ways that farms can support well-being. And then one of the greatest things about the typical day here was our break time and the community building space. And so you can see that's my student Aria playing guitar, and those are all participants at the farm and farmers from Noorduva. So we sang a lot of songs. They knew a lot of lyrics to Bob Marley songs and also Maroon 5. So those were some hits for us. And we were able to really build a lot of connections. We had it was a great introduction to how important those spaces are, the flow of the day, really similar to a lot of our care farms in the US. And so starting around 9, having that morning meeting, breaking up into teams. At Noorduva, they had a big bell, and they would ring it at 10:30, and everyone would have a coffee and tea break. And we'd have some of that community time, a faster break in the morning, back into your work teams, and then a break for lunch. Lunch was a longer break, and we usually had that time to sing some songs and snuggle some pigs or pick some berries that were growing around. And then we would go into different teams in the afternoon, and then have the end of the day right around 3 o'clock again with the bell ring. All right, these, there were a lot of comments from my students. We had reflection time every evening, and this this was really, I think, a very pivotal experience for many of the students, just especially because many of the students who elect to take the course are not necessarily social work students. Many of them are part of our sustainable ag program or our environmental education program or conservation biology. We had a lot of different majors represented in the class, and there were many comments around just how it changed their perception of our campus and its potential to serve our community and to be a real resource for the community, not just as a food producer or an example of sustainable agriculture practices, but really as a space for community building and mutual support. So, as you know, living in an area that that does have a lot of challenges, we really, it's been just a thrill for me to see the mindset of students grow to really recognize the capacity of the college and to think about our land more creatively. That was it for me. Here's some of my student and some Nordova farmers letting us say goodbye to the cows. All right. So we do have about 15 minutes left for any questions, and I'm happy to bring the mic to anyone who would like to ask a question of any of our, I'm trying. Any of our presenters. Yeah. Mostly community and CFN. Sometimes even intentional things that we do. That really, I suppose, take a using all authorities, and so they're secondary and because they don't fit it. They don't fit this regulations and they're very good. Based on the style of the
residential, here from social economists, and already do the west side, because they are a wide variety of apps. I'm not sure. I can't say using fluid for the test and all of the things, so I'm not looking at the most. And it's funny that and but it's not hard.
Okay, that's what we call it. House, that was kind of really great, I would pay the percentage of the government, the person, like the services to the client, and that changes depending on the farm, and you check.
Maarten, could you hear that question? Can you hear me? Okay, and I think the question was, can you talk a little bit about the copays and how that is determined? If it's a standardized copay or how that was, sorry, Rebecca.
You know, like social parts of government, health part of the government, and maybe the services of itself in that.
Yeah, kind of the breakdown between how that copay works between government or the client themselves or health services. How's that figured?
No, well, so most of the waiver programs, at least in Montana, fell under Medicaid, and it was no copays, at least not for the service. I think there might be some general copays, but you only apply. You can only apply for these programs if you're low income, and so as
What's
far
the
as I know,
question?
there was no copays, and I always made a point of trying to keep that level so that people could go. And because we supplied it not as an extra program, but as a replacement program for respite programs or day programs that were already without copay, the copay didn't apply to us either.
And specifically about how that works in the Netherlands.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So in the Netherlands, it's, I often explain to people in the US that we pay 55% of our income towards taxes. And then most Americans don't want to move to Europe anymore. But that means that these kind of services are free. If you have the level of care that you need, then the government will pay for it.
As you deconstruct institutions, the budget, the budgets are controlled by large international companies. It's beginning. There's people who are appreciate that. If the government signs up to the convention move to the R, we are operating at a national level, regional level, and local level to build relationships with commission available. It's a lot of work. We can't consolidate that because it was really stretches the resources as we do that in our Europe. Most of them understand humor, but that's what they're asking for. Same thing here. You know, most parts of Europe, you can actually by law, if it is
Thank you all so much. It was a great presentation and very, very hopeful. Like it is very inspiring to hear other societies doing the right thing. As an American, just sitting here thinking, what would be the most effective next step use of my time to get involved with advocacy? It seems like the success really unlocks when the government supports the Care Farm program. I know very little about that. It feels like a private pay model is much more the norm here, which gets away from some of those core values of inclusion. So this might actually be more of a question for you. Is the Care Farm Network the best advocacy tool we have in this space? And I'm curious what government entity is the best to want to try to get involved, like the Department of Agriculture, or they kind of are inroad into the government?
I'm going to throw this to you because it was sort of a question, and given your work in Montana and your understanding of having lived in the US and dealt with state and federal funding, the question is, what would be some recommendations on what we could do for both advocacy here in the United States? Where are the inroads that we look at? Would that be Department of Ag, maybe federal or state? But maybe using your experience in Montana, how did you do what you did? And if you would have stayed, what would you have continued to do?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'll try to answer it quickly since your time is running out. In most countries, the inroads were initially through agriculture because entrepreneurship and diversification is a policy from rural development and agricultural policies. And so they were the ones that would support care farming for the first, 4 to 8 years. That happened in several European countries. I did look at agricultural subsidies in Montana as well, and it was just very difficult and extremely administrative. And so I was able to do this on the side. I had another job. And so I just decided not to go for subsidies and did it without it and just went straight for the healthcare system and basically, used the credibility that was achieved in Europe. And there's many resources online that are in English that I used there. Um, and then just started small to get, direct payments for the care that we provided. If I were, and we tried to start something nationally in the Netherlands. This was before the care farming networks. I'm always sad that that happened after I left. And we did write for some grants for, from bigger philanthropic foundations, and we just didn't get it. But I think that's definitely something that could be done. And then the third, pillar I would recommend is to always just start with the farmers themselves. After we got the subsidies for about 8 years in the Netherlands, the government withdrew, and then there was a bit of a, tense time whether farms would be able to step up their game and start paying for their own national organizations, and we did. But that's difficult because in the beginning, almost nobody makes enough money to pay, $300, $400, $500 a year to be a member of some sort of organization that does advocacy that might help you in 3 years. So it's, in the beginning, your battles are so direct that, it's helpful to get some sort of public money, either philanthropic or government. And I think, you guys within the network have enough of a momentum and power now that it could be done. Um, but it won't be easy.
I'm just gonna say one quick thing about synergy with CFN is to look at the size of the United States to really look at some of the regions that we feel to be the best inroads. It is one of the reasons why we started with the USDA and got some funding through Northeast Fair to sort of proof our concepts that you can do things like mentorship and research and building on conferences like this in hopes that then with the way the USDA did, go into other regions, replicate and kind of scale or strengthen those efforts. That's also one of the reasons that we're going to be looking very much in terms of the models of care farms. To your point, Brian, how if there is a agency, if there is a service of county or state service, what states are doing that well would be most receptive to building kind of a region of care farms and pointing to that region and then saying it's being done here.
I will say there's Massachusetts in the room. I think that is a very different place to be targeting and looking at and saying if it's done here, how else can we do it in other states and going towards some of those receptive states and regions? So
The key is work.
work, yeah. Yeah. What time? Thank you so much, Martin.
Good luck. Have a
Sorry
good
that this
conference.
wasn't, yeah. Sorry, we weren't set up a little bit better on hybrid, but I'm so glad you could join us.
It's all good. I was able to answer the questions, I think, and so have a good conference.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'd
If
love
there's
to maybe
people,
check in with you in a couple of weeks and chat with you about how our conference went.
you bet. If there's any people that have questions for me now, they can. I don't know, there's somebody behind you, but she's probably for something else.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to share out your email. Is that okay?
Okay, sure.
Your new one that you sent.
Yeah.
Awesome. And this presentation. So thanks again,
Oh, yeah.
Martin.
Yep, you bet. Take care. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.